Hello everyone. Welcome to Wednesdays with English with a Twist. I hope we're live. It should be clicking in. I'm hoping to see maybe people joining in. I will see it in a minute. This is always a tricky one. Yes, we are. I can begin to see a couple of people joining. Hello everyone. Welcome to lesson 27 of Wednesdays with English with a Twist, otherwise known as EWAT. If you don't know who I am, I'm Shanti Kumaraswamy Street, your business English trainer at EWAT. And today is Wednesday the 14th of June, and it's a beautiful day here in London. I'm back in London. Yeah, so the background is completely different to the last time when I was in Barbados. Today's a beautiful day. Since I've been back, London, unfortunately today we had another tragedy, and I just wanted to say it's been really sad being a Londoner. You know, not only did we have the terrorist attacks on the 3rd of June when I was still away, and so it's really sad, and of course last night the devastating fire that gripped this huge building. It felt like watching all over again that 1970s movie, The Towering Inferno. I couldn't believe it this morning when I, woke up and checked my phone and looked at the BBC News. So on this really beautiful day, there's still tragedy. I know there's tragedy around the world, but it just never seems to end. I don't know about yourselves. But okay, let me move on from that sad note. But I just want to say, sometimes I feel sad. I hope things will start turning, certainly for my fellow Londoners. Anyway, Priya, hi. Federica, hi. Lovely to see you guys. I'm just going to refresh my page, my Facebook page, so that I can see who's coming in. I've just noted, I think Sylvia said hello, and Poonam, hi. I love that lovely wave. So guys, so we're here, lesson 27. It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, British summertime. So I don't know where you are. Please, again, for my regulars, I hope you've had a last good 2 weeks. And Gabriela, I'm so glad you made it, because you want to show whether you want to be coming into this. Hi from Argentina. Okay, so there's Flor de Lisa. I think you're new to this class, but I see some regulars here, so I'm really pleased to see that. I'm just sorry if I'm being distracted. It's because I'm looking on my computer to see who's joining in. And if I have missed anyone out as I begin to see people coming into the class, please forgive me. I am not ignoring you. But so I just wanted to welcome anyone who's new to Wednesdays with EWAT. This is the place. Hi Mubarak. This is the place where we talk business English. We look at how to communicate better, more effectively, and with more confidence in business English. And it's where I want to help you, become more effective communicators. Thank you, Christina. You noticed my tan. Yes. I know a lot of people have commented, and I've been very lucky. I do have genetics on one side, being half Indian, so it's very easy for me to tan. In fact, in the last week I've been in Milan, because as soon as I unpacked from Barbados, I was on the next flight to Milan, because my mother was having a small operation. All fine, all good, but I wanted to be with mom. And so the last week I've been in Milan, and I had a lot of people being very envious in Milan with my tan. So they were not very pleased with me, because in Milan a lot of people still haven't gone on holiday yet, so they were looking a bit paler than me. But yes, but this will soon go. Don't worry. With the English summer, this will all go in a minute. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy it. Picha, hi. Thank you, Gabriela. That's very nice of you. Hi, Picha. I hope I pronounced your name right. Please let me know where you're from, what time it is, and let me know, because I always love to know who is around the globe tuning in to English with a Twist Wednesdays with Ewart. Now, don't forget, everyone, this is the place for business English learners. So we talk predominantly, well, mainly business English, different topics and different areas of business English. And also, if you want to follow my classes, you need to be of an intermediate level and above to follow the lessons with ease. You don't have to be perfect in English, but we can do that. Christina, you're saying we're still working a lot in the heat. Yeah, Christina, I tell you, a week in Italy and I was ready to come back. I couldn't bear the heat in Milan. I found it really, really tough. I found it tough in Barbados, but I found it even tougher in Milan. And I really don't know how everyone does. But you know, 30 odd years in the UK with our really pathetic English summers has completely ruined me. I am not able to deal with the heat. How are you? How about all of you? Can you work well in the heat? Because I find it extremely, extremely difficult. Let me know, how do you find? And are your offices ventilated? Have they got air conditioning? Or do you have to suffer the heat with very, very little ventilation? Because here's the thing, in the UK there are the modern offices that have got air conditioning, but a lot of the older offices won't have. And you know, we don't tend to have big windows also in our homes, so we're not used to having hot weather. So when it is hot, it becomes unbearable. But luckily we don't have them too often, whereas in Italy, of course, it is a lot warmer. But, you know, when you're on holiday, everything is bearable. But it's when you're in working, it is a lot harder. So let me know where you are at the moment. What sort of temperatures have you got? How hot is it? How bearable is it to work in the heat? Do you have lots of air conditioning? For example, in Malaysia, where part of my family are from, my father and my brother, we have lots of air conditioning. So you tend to walk from a car that's air conditioned into an office that's air conditioned. So you tend to get used to that because you couldn't walk around in Malaysia or in Kuala Lumpur because it would just be too hot. But you in a lot of places, the shopping malls and the offices are all air conditioned. So you know, it's bearable. You can suffer the heat, you can deal with it, you know, you can manage the heat, as it were. Anyway, today we're not talking about the weather. Namaste from Greece, Vasiliki. Hi, lovely to see you. I haven't seen you in a while at Wednesdays with Ewart. So what are we talking about here today? Now, before I forget, and before you forget, if any of you haven't signed up to join the community of Ewart professionals, then please, I urge you, I recommend that you do that and that you join by signing up to the Ewart community. The sign up is, if you look at the Facebook page, will be on your top right hand corner. Sign up and you'll get your e-guide and then lots of new bonuses. Wow, Vasiliki, you finished your CELTA. Well done. Excellent. Congratulations. I bet you're really relieved. Mubarak, you're from Saudi Arabia and it's 42 degrees. Okay, I cannot imagine that, but okay. Oh, you are in a horrible, hot, filthy country called... Oh, no, India is not a hot, horrible, filthy country. It's hot. Okay, some areas are not very clean, but I wouldn't say that. I think you're being maybe a bit too hard on India. I haven't personally been to India. I've been to Sri Lanka, but, you know, but there you go. Sylvia, you are in winter, so I take it you're in the southern hemisphere. Whereabouts are you? Are you in Latin America? Are you in New Zealand, Australia? So it's the winter. I live near a ski center, so it's freezing. Yeah, India's majestic. I'll take it from you, Vasiliki. You've probably been there many times. But anyway, today here in London, we've got 25, 26, 28 degrees, I think. But there you go. Anyway, as I said, let's stop talking about the weather because otherwise I'm going to sound terribly British. Okay, so sign up. Don't forget to sign up. And if you're new to the Ewart community, do sign up. Oh, I've got also some little exciting news in the sense that I'm creating a new homepage and it's going to be almost ready soon. And there are going to be lots of new things there. And I'll be sharing that with you on the Facebook page very soon. So today's topic, lesson 27, is all about listening skills and how good you are as an active listener. Now, this is a post I wrote last week, and I thought I'd bring it up into today's class because I wanted to get some of your own comments and your interaction and to see what you think and what it's like to be an active listener when you are communicating in business. Because when we talk about communication, and in fact in my e-guide, my free e-guide that you would receive if you sign up to the eWord community, very much talks about how active listening is a huge part of being a good communicator. Hi Dan, how are you? And hi from London to Austin, Texas. So, you know, good communication is also about good listening skills. So here's the thing, let me ask you a question. Mubarak, I'm glad you like that subject. So here's my question. Imagine you're in a meeting, you've been in a meeting perhaps, and you're talking in a meeting, right? So you're discussing something. And you're in the middle of this meeting, and if you were to look around the table and your co-workers or your clients, how many of them do you think would actually be listening to you? I mean, can you tell me how many? I mean, how many would actually be watching you and listening to you? And how many of them would actually be fidgeting with their smartphones? Tell me. When you imagine the last time you had to give a meeting, you were the one talking about a particular point in an agenda, and you're looking around the table, and how many of people are actually listening to you? Or more often than not, they're looking at their smartphone and just going through their emails or whatever. I don't know what they're doing. Curious, let me know. When was the last time you had that? Or perhaps they are just looking around the room. They're not actually making eye contact with you. They're not listening carefully. They're just looking around. Okay, Althea, you're saying it depends on the topic that you're discussing. Okay, what sort of topic were you discussing in a meeting? So one needs also to know how to engage. Okay, Alessandra, you're saying it depends on how you engage. Okay, but let's say you're in a business meeting, okay? So you have an agenda in a business meeting and you're discussing something. So it's at a point in the agenda that everyone's come together and they're discussing it with you. And so it's your co-workers, and you know, you're talking about something important and you want them to be listening to you. But more often than not, what happens? I don't know about you, but Dan has just said my crowd mostly looking at their phones. Yeah, because so many people come with their smartphones, right? They come into a meeting and they have their smartphone by their side. And as they're listening to you, but they're scrolling. So they're scrolling through, I don't know what they're scrolling. And if you were to ask them, are you listening? They'd say, well, I'm listening. I'm just doing something else. Because we've also become a society of multitaskers. And as we multitask, we like to think that we're listening at the same time as doing something else. But often we're not. We can't do two things at the same time. Well, not well. How about you? What about when you... I mean, how do you feel? So when you're giving this presentation or you're in the middle of the meeting, how do you feel when people are not actually listening to you? You know, maybe they're reading the minutes, they're looking at the agenda, the meeting agenda to see the next point, or they're scribbling something, and you don't quite know whether they're scribbling something about what you're saying. And what about yourselves? Are you good listeners? Would you say you're good listeners? Or do you do the same thing? You know, fidget with your phone. So let me see, what do you say? Because some of you have been telling me, depends on the topic. Let's see, Zita, most of them are not listening. And after the meeting, they ask for the same thing again and again. This way, we lose time, unfortunately, or we waste time. Yeah, Zita, very good point. Yeah, I'm a teacher and it's frustrating. Sylvia, yeah. Zita, and I think you're very true, because what happens is people are not listening, and then they ask you the same questions later, and you think, well, if you've been listening in the first place, I wouldn't have to repeat this a few times. And that is one of the most frustrating things, when people don't listen. How about yourselves, though? If you were honest with yourselves, are you good listeners? Or do you too also tend to fidget with your phones? That's the thing. So today we're going to be talking about how active listening is important in communication. And could you just, in a few seconds, tell me, why do you think active listening is important for good business communication and for good business practice? Why do you think being an active listener, actively listening to your colleagues, to your clients, is important? What does it say? Interesting, Dan, you're saying you listen well one-to-one, but you're a poor listener in meetings. Why do you think that is, Dan? Why are you a poor listener in meetings? What's happening in a meeting that stops you from listening well? I'd love to know. I mean, have you ever thought about it? Zita, great. So you're saying, yes, I listen to the others talking because this is the first thing if you respect somebody. Mubarak, actively listening shows you respect them. Absolutely. I mean, it is, isn't it? If you respect, to listen to someone shows that, one, they're important, and two, that you respect them. And so, and if you want to build a good working relationship, whether it's with your co-workers or whether it's your clients, then you need to actively listen to them. Otherwise, why would I do business with you if you're not even going to listen to what I have to say? The voice of the speaker puts me to sleep. Okay, let me just check there. It helps to understand others' views and ideas. Exactly, Poonam. He says, yeah, it helps to understand other people's views. Dan, I don't understand what you mean by Steve Jobs invented the iPhone. That didn't explain why you find it difficult to listen in a meeting. Mubarak, respect builds trust, which is an essential aspect of doing business. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, if we're going to respect people, it builds trust. If you're going to listen to me, that means I feel that you're respecting what I have to say, and I'm ultimately going to trust what you reply. So it's building that mutual respect and mutual trust that we have. That's great. But that's the thing, you see, but this is interesting because we all realize that active listening is important, and yet, according to research, only we only hear 25 to 50% of a message people are giving us. So when we're talking, when we're listening, we only pick up 25 to 50% of their message. And that is amazing. That is actually pretty bad, don't you think? I mean, are you surprised by that statistic, 25 to 50%? Because if you're listening to someone, it's interesting because Vasiliki said it depends on their voice. Okay, I get that, because if you're talking about someone who's got a monotone voice, and, so it's interesting, isn't it? It's not necessarily, maybe it's not necessarily what they're saying, but it's also how they're saying it. So again, it's how you engage the person. Who is it who told me about that earlier? It's how you engage the people, so to get them to listen to you. Also, you're saying it's important because the more you pay attention to the subject, the more you're aware of the situation, so you can discuss it afterwards. Okay, so active listening, why it's important? Because absolutely, because you've got to listen and you've got to then understand the situation. But 25 to 50%, that's pretty bad, isn't it? That most of us, we listen to a message and we only grab that little amount. Why? Because I think it's because we're not paying attention. But there's also other things, isn't it? What happens when we're listening? Yes, Vasiliki. So you want to use the voice, you want to use your body language, whether it's you're in a meeting or presentation, to engage your audience and to get them listening to you. So not just the voice, but your body language, and so you're enchanting the audience. Yes, it could be the most boring topic you have to discuss, maybe the financial sales figures or the latest projections or whatever you've got to do, but there is a way that you can get people's attention. But also paying attention to people is very important to understand what they're saying. But often people find it difficult to pay attention. And I just wanted to share with you why that is. Why do you think we find it difficult to pay attention to people? Apart from the voice, what about from our point of view? What happens? You know, if you think about yourselves, right? If you're engaging, say, small talk, you're engaging in a one-to-one, you're having a meeting with people, you're listening to them. But what's also happening in your mind at the same time as you're listening to them? What do you think what happens? I'd love to know what you think. Thank you so much for your engagement here. Deepa, the topic today is all about listening. How do we actively listen to help our business communication? So it's active listening. So what happens? Difficult situations in personal life, detractors, yeah. But imagine, you know, when someone's talking to you, so perhaps they're giving their opinions about something, or they're giving you their side of the situation. Say you're discussing a project, or you're discussing a problem and you're trying to solve the problem, and you're in this meeting and you're having this discussion. So one person starts talking and you're listening to them, but what's also going on in your mind? Because it happens to all of us. No matter how hard we try to avoid it, it happens. Zita, you're saying lots of things happen in life. We always hurry. We might think about what we forgot to do. Yes, so we are getting distracted. We're thinking of other things. Don't understand many of the words they're saying. Okay, I understand what they say, even if I don't understand many of the words. Okay, so Elena, you're talking about where you're talking to people in English in the language that's not yours. Okay, interesting. Okay, let me hear. This is what I'm thinking about. This is what I mean when I'm saying that you have that situation where you're in a meeting, so someone is talking to you and they're telling you their side, or maybe they are looking to how to solve an issue, or there's been some trouble or some problem and whatever. Now they're giving their opinion, they're giving their situation. Now what's happening in my mind is I'm immediately thinking about my answer. How I'm going to answer this person, my contribution to it. So that immediately stops me from listening to them. Because they're thinking, you know, I think this is it. And I've sort of started listening to them a bit, but then I'm immediately thinking, no, okay, this is my answer. So you start thinking about what you're going to say, and you switch off listening to the other person. I know that happens to me, and I have to really make a conscious effort of not doing that. How about you? Have you had that situation where the person's talking, but you're already thinking about your answer, how you're going to answer them, how you're going to, you might think of something else if you already know all about the theme. You could do, you might know, or you might have an opinion. You might already have an opinion about how to solve an issue. And so then what happens? Then there's a tendency of what happens? That, you know, you're already thinking, so say for example, I'm thinking of a meeting where we're discussing a problem. We have to think about how we're going to solve this issue. So everyone's come together, it's a brainstorming session, so you're all discussing something. So one person says, right, I think, you know, this is what I'm going to do. So you go, yeah, but, yes, but, okay, so that's really interesting, But you know what I think we should be doing here is, so what's happened there? You've actually not listened. You've listened to the first bit, but then actually you've taken over. You go over and then you start, you take over and then you start bringing in your own opinion of, oh, but I know the best way to do this. And so that ends up having this situation where that person hasn't been able to finish what they wanted to say, and you have interrupted and come in with your own thoughts. Again, of course, this shows a lack of respect because you're not giving that person the time to talk. And it happens all the time, doesn't it? In meetings, in conversations, it always happens. And if you're a child, when you're growing up, your parents probably told you, don't interrupt, let the person finish. But in business, we often don't do that. We don't let the person finish their conversation or what they're saying before we interrupt them and we start saying something. So that interferes with this active listening. And that's really hard, isn't it? Because we all have an opinion. We all want to say things. Take, for example, if you're discussing politics. Politics is this big thing. And I'm as guilty as any, so my husband will be saying something and I don't agree with them. And then I think, no, my idea is better. And you don't let them finish their conversation and immediately you come in. And so then you end up having this big argument. Zita, you're saying this can be double-sided because my idea can be the solution. If it's an emergency, then interrupting can be life-saving. Okay, Zita, that's interesting point. I like your point, but yeah, it could be. And if it's an emergency, it depends what you do, Zita. What do you do? More often than not, most businesses, we're not in that emergency situation. Of course, you can interrupt. I suppose there are good ways of interrupting people. Say, listen, great point, but I'm sorry, but we need to make a decision now. But is it still... Vasiliki, you're saying it needs discretion because many times the speakers overdo it, chewing again and again the same thing. Yeah, that's true, Vasiliki. And I suppose the key here, if you are in a meeting, is to have a good chairperson. So whoever's chairing that meeting should be able to then say, I think we're going over the same point. Now we need to look at something new. That's absolutely true. So where you have speakers who just keep repeating and going over and over the same point, then it's down to a chairperson to say, okay, finish, let's move on to the next point. Or you've made your point, thank you very much, and then ask someone else. If you have a good chairperson, then that can work very well. Yes, and that would be down to the situation. Yeah. So let's moving aside from a business meeting, how about when you're in one-to-one? Are you still a good listener? If you're in small talk, we've talked about engaging in small talk and having one-to-one. How good a listener are you? Are you focused on the person who's talking to you? And how do you respond to them in a way that shows them that you're listening? Vasiliki is saying it happens to plenaries too. What happens in plenaries, Vasiliki? Can you tell me a bit more? So where we're talking about one-to-one, engaging in one-to-one, so you're in the middle, you're engaging in small talk, or you're engaging in a one-to-one meeting. And do you actively listen to the person? Obviously, if it's an important meeting, of course, you're going to actively listen. But how do we actively listen to them? How do you show that you're listening to them? Deepa, yes, excellent. You're nodding your head. You're nodding your head. So you're using your body language, aren't you? So nodding your head. What else can you do? What else can we do to do that? To show that you are focused, you're paying attention, you're listening to what they're saying. I mean, these are points that I made and, are pretty logical that people do. So nodding the head could be one. You could use little points like, okay, so Vasiliki talking about plenaries, you're saying talking about a topic interesting, okay, but over and over again doing the rounds. Okay, you mean if we go to many plenaries and the same subject is being put? Zita, you offer technical assistance. Often happens that if you don't interrupt to change direction, we go the wrong way with a program installation. I completely agree with you, Zita. That's interesting. Yes, good point you make here. If you're offering technical assistance, absolutely. If the client or the person you're helping keeps going on the same point, of course you're trying to help them. So then you have to say, right, but can I? Okay, I get that. Very interesting. Good point. So you are actively listening to them, because you're then saying, okay, but in order for me to help you, you know, we need to talk about something differently. I need these questions answered and things like that. Very good point. Yeah, absolutely. So it all depends on the situations you're in. Vasiliki, nope, I'm talking about saying the same thing in one talk without offering insightful tips. Yeah, good point. Yes. So you're just saying something, but you haven't said anything that's interesting. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're all guilty of that, aren't we? But there you go. Yeah, good point. Or recycling the same thing. Yes, yeah. I think, yes, particularly with conferences and plenaries, when you go to talks or seminars, then yes, maybe you've heard the same thing and you haven't heard anything new. Yeah, that's really... So then what happens? Then do you switch off and you're not really listening? So we're going back to our listening skills, so you switch off, you think, I've heard this already. So you've decided, okay, yeah, this is a waste of my time. So I can see that. I can see how that can happen. But listen, so looking at from the point of view of how to, you know, what active listening is all about. We talked about respect. We talked about building trust. So, you know, really good business is all about, one, communicating your message, and two, listening to the message someone else is giving you and accepting it and showing that you've understood that message. So that's really, you know, good ways. That's crucial in any good business relationship that we're going to have. And so there are various tips on how we can be active listeners. And one of the points I made in my blog post that was published last week was that, because I think it was, who did mention it earlier about the language? Elena, you said that when you are doing business in English, you don't always understand what the other person is saying. That's true. Now, but the point is, and that's of course going to happen. But my point about active listening is also it happens in all languages. You can be I've had many situations where proficient users of English, we're not active listeners even in our own languages. So one of the points I made in my post was, you don't have to, active listening has got nothing to do with the level of your English. Yeah, you don't have to be a proficient user of English. You don't have to be a fluent English speaker. And you can still be an excellent active listener. So active listening is a skill that not only do English learning professionals need to learn, everyone needs to learn. And there are many people who are not good listeners. I know when in my business life, when I was starting out in investment sales, one of the things we were taught was, as a salesperson, the most important thing you need to learn is to listen, not to talk. Listening to your client, listening to your customer. It's not about you talking about your product, your investment strategy, your investment proposal, or whatever. It's you actually listening to what your client or your customer is saying and responding to it. And that was always a huge thing for me. And now, I don't like to bring in gender equality and gender inequality in my lessons, but I think in business is a big difference, because I did notice that when I was in business, women tend to be better listeners than men. And I know that a lot of my male colleagues would have real issues about listening first. You know, they go and see a client and immediately start their presentation. Start going, well, this is our company is blah, 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 and just keep going. and you think you haven't 1 minute stopped to then ask a question, pause, and listen to the answer. And that was, you have to. Yeah, exactly, Mubarak. How to be a good listener is critical, because you have to listen to what the other person is saying, because that way you are going to respond, and that also person thinks, okay, I'm important enough for me to listen, and you are, you know, someone else is listening to me. So if you really value your customer, you value your client, listen to them. Listen to what they're saying to you. It's just like me with yourselves, you know. I'm, okay, a language trainer, but, you know, when we're, you know, in building my business, and when I ask you, please let me know what you'd like in classes and what you'd like me to write about, what sort of content you like. If I don't listen to you as my audience, you're going to say, well, she's just going to, you know, you're not important to me. But of course you are. But the only way you're going to prove that, you know, the only way I'm going to prove that you are important to me is if I listen to you. And it's the same in all businesses, right? You know, because, you know, businesses all go, our customers are very important, our clients are important to us. Yeah, but if you're not going to listen to what the customer wants or needs, then forget it. You know, you can have the best product in the world, but if that's not what the customer wants, then you're not going to sell it. And that's just how it is. And so it's so important. So when you're interacting, sit, ask some questions, some open-ended questions, and sit quietly and listen. And let them, and make notes, listen to them, watch them, look at them, give them good eye contact, smile, nod your head, as you said, and also perhaps repeat what they're saying. Or, you know, maybe saying, when they pause, you know, when people start talking, then we pause for a minute. And maybe you could say, that's really interesting. So if I understood this correctly, this is what you are looking for, or this is what you need, or this is what you're saying. Is that right? Have I understood that? And that engages the other person, because the other person goes, oh, good, this person's listening to me. Fantastic. But you know, it's amazing, because you're probably listening to me and going, Shanti, you know what? This is not rocket science. This is logical. But so few people do it. So few people, they were so busy, ready to just say everything, that you forget to ask. And this particularly happens, I've noticed this, is when we're very uncertain about our language. So say, for example, you're in a meeting in English, or you're presenting in English, and English being your second language, so it's not your main language. You're so concerned about how to present, how to say everything, that you forget to pause and listen and ask a question back. And so you go straight in, because you just want to get it over and done with, and you don't stop to listen and ask the question and listen to the answer, and also repeating. And so, you know, and then as they listen, now another thing that what I think Elena says, when you have a problem, maybe you haven't quite understood someone, one of the things I teach when I'm helping some of my coaching clients is I've said repeat. So to say, okay, that's very interesting, let me get this right. You are saying that the problem you're having is this, 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 this. Then it makes the other person have to listen to you and agree or correct you. That way it shows two ways, that you've listened, maybe you didn't quite understand, but then you're asking them to repeat. And I think that's just a great way. And this is where I mean that active listening doesn't mean that you have to be perfect in English. You don't. The customer trusts, because absolutely you're being a good listener, Mubarak. Exactly. Because you're listening to them, the customer thinks, he thinks I'm important. He cares what I want to what I want to say, what I need. And hopefully you're going to act on what you've heard. And I think it's so important, whether it's engaging in small talk, And you know, small talk is so important, right? You're going to a conference, you go to a corporate event, you're listening, you're engaging with customers, and you want to keep picking up little words, little things. And when you pick something up, then repeat it and go, that's very interesting. Could you tell me more? Or, you know, and that's what I mean. It's constantly engaging, breaking it, asking more questions, and not thinking about how you're going to answer questions. Letting them do the talking and then responding. Because also if they do that, you don't have to spend so much time on your English. It becomes a lot easier because you're doing most of the listening. But then make notes, and if it helps to make notes, I have to make notes. Because also one of the things I learned when I was in business, in investment sales, is as you're making notes, that shows the customer and the client that you're serious, that you are, you know, you're not going to forget. You know, it's like, for example, you know, when you go to a restaurant and the waiter comes up or the waitress comes up and they're taking your order and they don't write anything down. I'm never sure whether they've taken my order correctly. You know, and I'm thinking they're going to forget my order. And so sometimes they have you taken my order? Yes, I'll remember. Okay, some are really, really good and they remember. But often they forget. And I think, well, you know what? It would have been easy if it made a note. So Vasiliki, like you're saying, keeping notes alongside with listening is vital. I have my book always. And I always made notes. And I'd always say to my clients, is it okay if I make notes while I ask you questions? And they don't have a problem with that. You know, now, of course, we have, with our phones, our smartphones, we have voice memos. So you could I record you, ask permission, and so that way you don't miss anything, or you can go back to it if you haven't quite understood something. One of the things also with talking to people on the telephone I've noticed is if you can, put them on loudspeaker and then record them on your phone, because then that way you can then go back to listen, because if you've missed something you can go back to listen to do that. I mean, I experimented that with a coaching client where we were doing that. So she would record her conversations with clients where she put them on loudspeaker, and then we would go over that and she was able to pick things up. I'm sorry if you've heard my dog barking, it's because he's waiting for his walk, and I hope he's not going to start barking more. But so, you know, so these are all the things that we're looking at in terms of active listening. Oh dear, he's going to start barking more now. And I do apologize for the sound effects. Oh dear. Right, now listen, I did promise to give you these 5 tips. So I'm going to recap some of these 5 tips for you, and I hope you and thank you very much for your engagement here. So let's look at the 5 tips that we're looking at for it. I think I might just have to shut the door so I can keep my dog quiet. So the first tip, tip 1, excuse me, I'm going to close this door. The joys of live lessons are always great. Okay, tip 1, pay attention. Okay, tip 1, pay attention. Yes, Vasiliki, yes. So give the speaker your undivided attention. Look at them directly, put aside any, try not to think about other things. I know we're busy, like you were saying, we're busy. Zita, you were saying we're always very busy. We're thinking about all sorts of other things we've got to think about. And so it's really difficult, but sometimes we need to just switch off and concentrate, depending on how important it is, of course. I mean, if someone's just going on and on and on, you don't want to bother. And try not to mentally prepare your answer. You know, really just blank mind, let's listen to what they've got to say and then respond. And don't get sidetracked by conversations. Now this is especially when we have meetings, say for example, you know, if you're meeting someone in a hotel, reception area, or in a coffee bar. So it's really easy to get distracted by side conversations, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes you do. You hear other people speaking. Direct eye contact, exactly. Deepa, making eye contact with people is always crucial. You don't want to stare at them, but, you know, looking at them, engaging with them, and using your eyes to express your interest in what they have to say. So I think a lot of that, and also listening to the speaker with their body language. Their body language is they're looking at you, so respond back. If they're moving forward, you know, mirror what they're doing, you know, lean forward, so you're showing that you are focused what they have to say. Making notes is also a great way of saying, I'm listening to you, because I'm now making notes of what you're saying. And also, particularly if you're not very sure of your English, that can also help. Tip 2, show. And again, here again, we're talking about showing, similar thing, to show the speaker that you're listening to them. So nodding your head occasionally, not keep nodding, but you know, nod occasionally where it is, repeating what they've said, hala, exactly. So, and you know, smiling and encouraging them, you know, so, you know, just a smile, nod, yeah, okay, and sometimes you just make noises, yeah, of course, yes. Anyway, they made a good point, and you think, yes, of course, that's so true. You know, because that encourages them to think, oh, you know, we agree. If you don't necessarily agree, maybe because they're and then maybe make a note and then wait and then come back to them with something. I don't know. There are different ways, aren't there, of doing that. But you know, you're encouraging them also with I see, yes, yeah, good point, good point. You know, so these are little words that you can put in when you're talking to them. And giving them feedback. What we talk about, you know, tip 3, I said about giving feedback to people. It's when you're saying, I see, so what you mean is this. Oh no, I'm a bit confused. What do you mean by that? Oh, I see. Ah, yes, 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 I know what you mean now, yes. So that's the thing, because if you're not too sure, I've noticed how people are not too sure and they don't dare say anything. They just keep quiet. And I think, no, say, because I don't want to keep talking and then find that at the end of it, you haven't understood a word I've said. No, interrupt, you know, just to say, oh, can I just ask you, sorry, but what you mean here is, no, but I'm not too sure. What do you mean by, you know, logistical software or logistical know-how? What do you mean by that? If I will do this exactly. Hala, yes, and this is one of my points I'm going to make, which is try and put yourself in their situation. If it were you, what would you want happening? You know, you're talking, what would you want them to be doing? The same, proves that you're giving feedback, exactly, asking a few questions and showing that interest and that you are listening and that you want them to, maybe that you're not sure about something. And summarizing their comments. Oh, I see, so that's what you mean. So in other words, we should do this instead of that. Yes, correct. Okay, I got you. I understand you. Right, great. Okay. All right, what about, okay, excellent. So moving on, so we're doing this. Again, you don't need a lot of English to do that. That's perfect. Tip 4, which is so important, don't interrupt. I hate when people interrupt. It is really difficult though, because there's a lot of, I don't know about you, there will be also a lot of personalities. Maybe there are personality clashes. Maybe there's a particular co-worker you don't like, or there's someone who you don't agree with. You just don't agree with. Whatever they say, you don't agree. So it's really hard to, you know, bite your lip, as we say, and stop yourself from interrupting. And I sometimes have that. We all struggle with that. So, but you know, you just got to try not to. Allow them to finish their point and then ask the questions. And don't keep stopping them with your counter argument, because that's so frustrating. And, you know, so, and I know that you all know this and you would do this, and it all depends on the scenarios. But you'd be surprised by how often people do that. And then what happens is nothing gets solved at the end. And you end up feeling so frustrated at the end of a meeting or at the end of a conversation. You think, so how did it go? Oh, well, it was rubbish. It was a waste of time. We never agreed anything because he kept interrupting. He kept going off on a tangent and he kept repeating himself. And so you walk away thinking, waste of space, waste of time. Wish everyone would just, you know. And Yes, Zita, and taking notes during long presentation, crucial. I never forget. I never remember half of it, so I need to. Okay, so don't interrupt. And then the final tip is really to respond appropriately. And what I mean by responding appropriately is to respond with respect, to respond in a way that shows, yeah, I hear you, I value your judgment, I value your opinion. Now I either agree with you or I don't. So if I agree with you, great, let's hear it. Or, okay, I've heard you, I understand your point, but I don't agree with you, and this is why I don't agree with you. And let's try and find another way. Now, different cultures are different ways of dealing with this, but I think regardless of culture, regardless of language, there are ways that we can say, okay, I understand what you're saying, but I don't necessarily agree, and this is why I don't agree, because you think I respect what you have to say, but please now listen to me, and then be honest with what you're saying, and tell them, what you think, and then assert your, give your opinion, in a very respectful way, and also in an assertive way. You don't want to sort of, I'm sorry, but these are my thoughts. So say, this is how I feel, and this is what I think should happen, and things. And this is a lot of communication, isn't it? You have to respect the other person. You might not agree with them, but if we believe in the freedom of speech, and that people's opinions count, and particularly if you're in a business where it is a shared, you are working as a team, then you've got to you have to listen to other people and then say why you don't agree with them. But the thing is, if you don't listen to them first, then you won't know why you're disagreeing. And you can't just disagree just because you want to disagree, because that makes life very difficult in business, doesn't it? And it causes all sorts of bad feeling. These are crucial communication skills, yes, and that transcends, that goes beyond English as a language. It is language everywhere. All of us have to do that. And that's why I say, with English with a twist, you're not just learning the English language, you're also learning key communication skills in business. Because in my business, in the business I used to be in, I saw this. This is key fundamental communication skills that all of us need to learn. And we don't have to be perfect in all the different languages, but there are key ways, fundamental ways we can all communicate really well without being proficient and fluent in different languages. There's that respect, listening, pausing, letting that person finish, making notes whilst they're speaking, then going back, repeating what they've said. All these little tricks, ways, takes time. Sometimes maybe it's against your nature, it's against your personality, but we've got to try. Because only that way do we build a good relationship, and people then trust you. Because if they trust you because they know that you're listening to them, that can only be a good thing. If my clients think that I am listening to them and I'm going to respond accordingly, that can only be good for both of us. Then they'll come back to me and say, I like Shanti because she listens to me and she responds to me. I could easily be a teacher who goes, no, listen. You need to do this. This is how you're going to do it. Listen to me. I'm the teacher. I know best. No, it's not going to work. You're adults. You're professionals. And there's no respect I'm showing you. I'm just thinking I'm the teacher. Sumesh is saying, will this work out for business review meeting if we're in the receiving end? Yeah, why not? You're in a business review meeting. You're in the receiving end, being that you're the one listening to the other person. Similar, because then you're going to repeat back and you're going to, ask them questions and, take notes. And then if you're encouraged to give your feedback and your comments, then great. I know there are some cultures where feedback is not encouraged, but there are still ways that one can offer it. And you, of course, know the best ways to do that, being in your own different cultures. But anyway, listen, I hope this class, I'm just conscious, you know, this the whole thing of active listening is a big thing for me, because I feel that it's an area that very, very few people are aware. And the more aware we are, the more we can actively become, you know, improve that. And that goes for also our listening skills in English, in any language that we're listening to. So I hope that sort of given you some ideas on, you know, how to be an active listener, no matter what level your English is at. Now, talking about listening, as we've been doing all this lesson, I do want to tell you that I and a fellow English trainer, Cara Leopold, and I will be giving a free live lesson next Tuesday, 20th of June. It's going to be at 11 o'clock London time, British summer time, 12 o'clock Central European time. And in this, we're going to be talking about very much listening skills, how you can improve your listening skills, especially through blogcasts and audio blogs. Now, the reason we're doing this is because Cara, she's a listening skills expert, and her niche is helping learners like yourselves to improve your listening skills, but it's more so with general knowledge, with general English and business English. Of course, I take it to the business English niche. And we started, as you've probably seen if you have subscribed to my eWhat community, is my blogs now have an audio version to them. And they're called blogcasts. So it's a mixture of a blog and a podcast. And it allows you to listen to the blog whilst reading or just listening. So depending, you know, it gives you that flexibility. So what we wanted to do in this live lesson is to show you how, by using audio blogs, by using blogcasts, you can improve your business skills, your business listening skills much more quickly than if you were to just read a blog. So I hope you can join us. It's going to be, it's a free live lesson. The sign-up details will be at the end of this lesson when I put together the recording and the notes on this. So I hope you can join us, sign up, and if you can't make it, don't worry, there will be a recording. Yeah, so Hala, if you're looking to improve your listening skills for English movies, then Cara is someone who helps a lot of her learners on that. Now, you know, I've always been a great believer on listening skills for movies, but you know, my niche is very much business English. So what I like to do is to bring in other fellow trainers who have got expertise in different areas so that we can work together, so that you have exposure to the different elements of English language learning. So that just builds your resource library so that you know where you can pick up the different things to help you. So I do hope you can join us. As I say, that's Tuesday, 20th of June, and it's going to be 11 a.m. British summertime. So make a note of that. But I'll put up the sign-up details. You have to sign up to join the class, because then you'll be sent a reminder. So do sign up, even if you can't make the class live, because then you'll receive the recording. So the sign-up details will be here, and also in my next blog post I will send out a reminder. So don't forget, guys, sign up to eWhat, the eWhat community, and if you've already signed up, then sign up to next week's live lesson. In the meantime, I want to say thank you so much again for listening in to this lesson 27. Thank you so much for your engagement, your comments. I hope you found it interesting. Please share with me your tips on how you actively listen. What frustrates you the most about people when they don't listen? And how do you deal with that situation? Because I'd love to know. And again, please tell me if there is anything you'd like me to cover in forthcoming Wednesday eWhat sessions. Because, you know, these are for you. And the more you tell me you'd like to to know about, then let's talk about it. Let's discuss. Hala, the details will be on the notes. So make sure you come back to the Facebook page. But I don't know if you've also signed up to my eWord community. I will send you the sign up. So I will give you the sign up details afterwards. If you don't find it on Facebook, it's going to be on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that. On LinkedIn, I will be sharing that sign up. So anyway, this is me, Shanti Kumaraswamy Street of English with a Twist, saying ciao for now. Thank you so much for joining me in today's lesson. I look forward to seeing you next week, which will be the 21st of June, where we'll be discussing a lot more about business English. Who knows what other topics we could be talking about. I will think, but if there are any topics you'd like me to raise, then drop me a line here in the comments box on Facebook and share with me, and I'll put together a lesson for you. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. Ciao for now. Take care. See you next week. Ciao.